Hey everybody, welcome back to Haman's Advice Forum. My name's the Haman, and I posted Ask Me Anything 3 days ago, February 20th. And sometimes when I do these, I feel like a week or two has passed. And I tell myself, like, man, it's only been 3 days. So we have two questions from our AMA, and actually two people who ask questions, and then there's like one person who has four questions from those two people. So let's ask all the questions. Question first person, right? Ryan Boone. Do you have a favorite band, genre of music? Would you take live callers like Dr. Drew? Who are your favorite professional gamers slash personalities? So as you get older, you really don't have like a favorite band or type of music, and your taste just kind of mellow out, right? Because when you're young, like when let's say when you're like a teenager, you obsess over like one or two artists and just listen to those artists over and over and over again, which I wish I could. But as you get older, you're at the age of the artist where you can start creating the music and distributing it and playing concerts. And when you're in your 30s and you see the other 30-year-old playing the guitar and you think, hey, I could do that too, it's not as impressive. I played the guitar for a long time, or at least it seemed like a long time to me. And then later on, I gave it up. But I could tell you who my favorite bands were when I was a teenager, because these were '90s bands, and I grew up in the '90s. So my two favorites were Foo Fighters and Smashing Pumpkins. I really loved that kind of music. And yeah, but as I've grown older, I have a huge music collection, but I can't really say if I listen. Sometimes I used to listen to I've listened to stuff that I used to love, and I realized, like, man, I'm not really in love with that music anymore. That's kind of a realization I came to. And I think the only music that I've never really been into is like hip hop. Although some hip hop is cool. Country, never really been into country. I what else? I like some sort of some classical, but I'm really mostly like rock and video game music. That was kind of like my bread and butter. Um, and would I take live callers like Dr. Drew? Probably not. Mostly because that requires setting up an infrastructure where I would have to broadcast myself live daily and hire a crew to, like, kind of like radio producers. They or people on the radio. They hire other people to take phone calls for them or screen them at least. Which is why I do the AMAs recorded, so I could take my time and do this whenever I want. As for my favorite professional gamers slash personalities, again, it's kind of like the music thing where, like, if I were like 16 or 17, I would maybe have a favorite gamer personality. And I know who the big ones are, but they seem to be changing so much as I've gotten older that I don't know who's who anymore. Whereas when I was younger, Alex Valle, and even though he's a really old man now, like he's old. Like I look at him like, whoa, dude got old, you know. Alex Valle was my favorite game personality because he was good at pretty much every game, from Street Fighter to Tekken to Marvel. And this is back a long time ago, almost 20 years ago. So 20 years have passed and I can't believe it. So yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, I guess I've answered all your questions. Kind of short today. I don't think these are deep questions. These are just like surface level questions, but it's all good. All right. Next question by zewtuube. Number one, do you feel that Asian Americans receive more criticism from their own community when compared to that of outsiders? Well, what does your question exactly mean? I don't really understand it, but I'm going to try to interpret it because it could mean a lot of things. Like, do Asian Americans receive more criticisms from other Asian Americans than, let's say, white people? Or are you just talking about races in general? For example, do white people not receive other criticisms from other white people or the same amount as Asian Americans would? right? And I'm going to say that this is a problem endemic in all races, even though there's different flavors of it. So, for example, in America, we have a saying called crabs in a bucket, right? And you think like, okay, that's just a common phrase. But in other countries, in other English-speaking non-American countries, they have a phrase for it called tall poppy syndrome, right? So if you're from America, you've never probably heard that. But it's the same exact meaning. And if you don't know what crabs in a bucket means, it means that if you're a crab, one crab in a bucket, and you try to get out, you can get out. But then if you have two or more crabs, if you're a crab in that bucket where there's two or more crabs and you try to get out, the other crabs are pulling you back in, right? And that's what the term crabs in a bucket means. And so other countries, other English-speaking countries like Canada, UK, New Zealand, they use the term tall poppy syndrome. And apparently, it's exactly like crabs in a bucket. So, if you stand out from others and you're trying to set your high expectations for yourself, people will pull you down. And that's pretty much true in any society, right? I'm pretty sure you've heard the stereotype that if black people try to act proper, they don't get criticized by white people. They get criticized by other black people for trying to act too white, right? And I've seen this with Latinos. I've seen this everywhere. Just different flavors of it. And people are their own worst enemies. They really are. And so, for example, like when I played sports in high school, I was just so surprised just how like the white kids' fathers were pretty much like living their dreams to their kids to the point that they it was like living their dreams through their kids to be a state champ or something like that. And it was ridiculous to a point where it made absolutely it was almost like I felt like so bad for them, and it felt like so dehumanizing to me, to the fact that you are there just to live through your parents' dreams and not you are not your own person. And of course a lot of Asian Americans experience that too. But when I saw that in like playing sports and I saw that white people, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's pretty fucking awful. And this occurs usually, this occurs in a lot of sports like wrestling, sports you wouldn't really think of, even like ice skating or figure skating. I don't know, football. I feel like the more popular the sport is, it doesn't happen as much. It's like these weird obscure sports that nobody really cares about and happens. And I might be wrong about that. So, yes, the Asian Americans do receive criticisms from people from their own community, but I feel like other races have their own versions of that too. And, that's really the struggle of life, right? So, are you going to decide you want what's best for yourself, or are you going to listen to the criticisms of others that will eventually just keep you down? Question number 2, is the Asian American standards of success and achievement set too high, which in turn creates a very stressful society that is hyper competitive? I just think society in general, modern society, is just too hyper competitive. It seems like every country nowadays has their own, like, keeping up the Joneses, especially with like Instagram and Facebook. So every country has their own Instagram celebs, YouTube channels, and just having a social media presence is such a time-consuming effort. And so when people see that other people, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or I don't even know what TikTok is. People talk about nowadays, but I have no idea what that is. And they see that, it just creates a certain anxiety and stress among people, and they feel like they're missing out, and they're keeping up. Now they have to keeping up with the Joneses. So I think it's this modern society is like that, because think about like 100 years ago, or look at maybe like TV from the 1940s. All it was is just you interacting with your neighbors, like I Love Lucy. Like, they're not keeping up with the Joneses. And when you see those shows, nothing seems like too stressful or hyper competitive. So I guess you could say it is high, but again, people are their own worst enemies. Like the worst thing you would want for yourself is to have to work very, very hard and get nothing out of it. And I'm gonna go off a little tangent here. I don't think it's just whatever you are, you're gonna encounter this. Maybe it's not because of your race, but think about it. Like if you're a white dude in rural America, where Amazon has a factory, right, a shipment factory, you are gonna work your ass off more than any other Asian American high school student, right? Because they will pretty much dehumanize you, work you to the bone, and get rid of you as soon as you're useless to them. And like I could never, I did really well in high school, and I realized like, whoa, I could never work in an Amazon factory. But tons of white people, people in rural America do it because there's no jobs there, right? It's either they go there or work at Burger King, and so they're kind of effed. There's so much high standards. I don't know if you ever heard the term pick rate, where you have to work yourself to the bone, and then they're just going to raise the goalpost and really dehumanize you to the point that it makes absolutely no sense for low wages. You realize the world's just a fucked up place. Like maybe your questions are Asian American centric because you're Asian American and you feel like, man, this is only happening to me because I'm Asian American. I'd say go if you want to get rid of that notion, just go work for Amazon for like a month in rural America, and you'll see that the world itself in general is just a hyper competitive place where they'll work you to death and get rid of you as soon as you're useless to them. Question number 3: would you move back to SoCal and reunite with your family and friends if they wholeheartedly apologized to you and changed their ways for the better? I actually went back to my hometown, and nothing changed. In fact, I feel like it got even worse. Like I felt like I put so much effort into improving my life, and then when I see the people back home, and I hope they're not listening to this because they'll probably be offended, it's almost like their minds just kind of regressed. Now that we're in our 30s, people, because they haven't taken care of themselves, are now showing they're now showing that the symptoms of health problems, depression, there's unemployment. People are making $100,000 a year. It's like one of two extremes. They're making $100,000 a year, but they have like $200,000 of student loan debt because, that's how much law school or grad school cost, right? Or they're unemployed. It's like one extreme or the other. And the problem with society is that society really makes you believe that your friends and family are an impediment to your success. Like I have never said that to anybody in my entire life, right? Like if someone says, "Hey, can you help me do this?" I'll be like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." Unless it's like a super dumb or unreasonable request. But I did go back, and it was really depressing. And when I was there, I felt this weird mental paralysis that I couldn't even like get any work done, and really, I'm not looking for an apology. I've, as and I'm going to go off a little tangent here. As you eat healthier, and let's say you do a lot of juicing and stuff, you tend to get a lot of nightmares, but then the nightmares are like a reflection of your negative emotions that I guess are trying to escape your body because they've been lodged in your body because of one of the reasons is because of the bad food. And I know that might seem crazy, but that's kind of what happened to me, where like for when I was doing juicing hardcore, a lot of the negative emotions I had towards my friends and family members, I felt an intense version of that, and then it, like in my nightmares, and then it would disappear. So I don't really hold the bitterness and anger to them that I used to feel, and I don't really think them apologizing to me would do anything. And it's not like they're going to apologize to me anyways, because they chosen the selfishness path of life, and wonder why they're gonna blame everybody else except for their own choices that they took, and wonder why they're at where they're at, right? If I could go back, the way that I feel about my friends and family right now is if you type in YouTube some kind of a monster and Dave Mustaine and Lars, that's really exactly how I feel. Well, not exactly, but that's kind of I sort of echo the sentiment. Okay. Question number 4: Would you ever do a meet and greet and one day for your subscribers? Probably not, because I have to take care. Taking care of your own life and maintaining it requires a lot of your own effort and energy, and I'm not at that point of life where I could just unless like this is like a speaking tour where it's gonna raise me a lot of money, like a politician would do when they're trying to get votes. It's not, unless it's something like that, I can't give up days of my life just so I can go on a little tour and a meet and greet, and sometimes I think it's just best to have a little barrier, because there's a saying, never meet your heroes, and I don't know if I'm your hero or not, but I probably won't, just because this is why I do YouTube. So the reason I do YouTube and media is because I'm trying to share a message to a group of random strangers who do not know me. And this would be the only way that they could receive this message, right? And so maybe my message, whatever it is, will help you reflect and make you think in your own life about what's going on in your own life. And I speak in very, very vague generalizations. So but a lot of I had a good number of people say, "Hey, Eric, like whatever you talked about, man, I felt exactly the way you do." And so my message is for those people. Not everyone's gonna vibe with what I have to say, and that's totally okay. That's totally okay. Right. So you say thanks a lot for answering, and lots of love to you, my dear brother. Hope the new year is a fruitful one for you. Great. Glad to hear that. Okay, so it's my thoughts, comments. I'm sorry, this is my AMA. So if you have any thoughts, comments, leave below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.